Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As Alf was having his lunch, he asked me could I give him a lesson in Irish, so he could pronounce my name. So he did very well. Well, I get the more difficult subject. So I just want to say, Her Royal Highness, Friends of Dementia, what a crowd. We're so delighted so many of you are here. It's great that you came to hear the voice of the person with dementia. We all feel rather chuffed by it. First of all, I want to say that I'm going to get some help. I've asked Anna to help me because I've been robbed of the ability to do two things together. And Anna's going to help me, and I think we have somebody that's going to help with the music, so we're ready to go. This is just to get us in the mood. You know the Irish, we love the music and dancing. But this isn't Irish.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Thank you. I'm sure you all know that's Bob Dylan, and that's about rights. And before I talk about rights, I always like to start by thanking my friends at the Irish Dementia Working Group, the Alzheimer Society of Ireland, the European Working Group of People with Dementia, and Alzheimer's Europe, but most importantly to my family, for helping to change my life and for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. So this first slide is I'm going to tell you about my personal story. For those of you that have not heard it, I might just give you some words of introduction. I'm from Sligo on the northwest coast of Ireland, so it took a couple of plane journeys to get here, but it's worth it all. So to tell you about me as a person, I lived abroad for many years. I had a wonderful career in the corporate sector. Together with my husband Sean and son Martin, we returned to Sligo, where we ran a business in the tourism sector for a number of years, and I later worked in the disability sector. I was a very active citizen, serving on many boards and a promoter of human rights. This was my life before the irrevocability of dementia diagnosis crept in. My dementia diagnosis is the reason I'm here with you today. It has brought me from Sligo to Copenhagen and beyond. But I also stand here because I have always been passionate about human rights. So interestingly, a lot of my work in community development and the disability sector has been about human rights and advocating for the rights of others. But I stand here today advocating for my own rights. My advocacy work is about ensuring that people with dementia are able to enjoy our human rights and access services on an equal basis with others. The Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities can play a major role in this advocacy work. 3. The Convention is an international tool for achieving social change and human rights. It is an international human rights treaty adopted by the United Nations. The Convention does not provide persons with disabilities with new, different human rights, additional to those already available to everybody else. So it does not make new rights. Instead, it affirms the rights of people with disabilities. Dementia is a disability, even though it can be hidden, and that is a starting point to understand how the Convention can support us to realise our rights. 4. There are some articles in the Convention that are of particular reference to people living with dementia. I will mention these articles here, and maybe we can have further discussion about them after my presentation. Awareness raising. The Convention requires that states take action, including at the family level, to foster respect for the human rights of persons with disabilities. We all know how important this issue is for people living with dementia. My family are the most important people in my life. They support me to live well and to live with happiness and joy. But we also know that families, through love and fear, can take away our rights in attempts to protect us. The state can play a role here in supporting me and my family to better understand my rights. This article also talks about combating stereotypes and prejudices, and I'm particularly passionate here about the need to remove the age marker often associated with dementia. Age should not come into it. I was under the age of 65. I had no services. When I say no, ladies and gentlemen, I mean absolutely nothing. A number should not be hanging over my head or anybody else's head. It should be about our illness. Of course, it is a reality that your risk of dementia increases with age, and the majority of people with dementia are in older age. But there are thousands under the age of 65, and it shouldn't dictate services or lack of access to services. I should not have had to wait until I passed that magic number to get access to local supports, but I did have to wait, and there are thousands all over Europe that are waiting. We have to remove the stigma of living with dementia, and the Convention can be used here to ensure that the state develops awareness and raising campaigns. There is a specific article devoted to equality and non-discrimination, including the obligation to provide reasonable accommodation. People with dementia have the right to continue to be part of their communities. I have the right to continue to access community services and supports. In Ireland, inspired by Scotland's Charter, we developed a Charter of Human Rights. The rights outlined in that Charter are basic, but denied to many of us living with dementia. People with disabilities may at times need extra help to access services equally with others, and this support should be available. I would like to be able to continue developing computer skills, but I need a class that is flexible and willing to work with my cognitive impairment, and that doesn't seem to be there at the moment. Equal recognition of the law. The Convention requires states to repeal guardianship laws and to replace substitute decision-making with supported decision-making in order to protect and promote the legal personhood and autonomy of people otherwise deemed to lack capacity. Ireland has recently passed an assisted decision-making bill, and this act will fundamentally change my life. It will mean that my will and preferences, which are my wishes, are heard, rather than in what is perceived as being in my best interest. This needs to happen all over the world. We need to have a voice in decisions that impact on issues in our lives. This is particularly relevant to persons with dementia, who commonly find their autonomy automatically undermined or removed following diagnosis, or who do not presently enjoy access to independent advocacy for support and with major decisions, such in relation to health, financial matters, or their fitness to drive or travel. My right to travel is fundamental to my dignity and autonomy. I travel freely before I had dementia, and I continue to travel. And I will tell you why I continue to travel. I love all those challenges at every airport when they arrive with the wheelchair, and I appear, and I look like there's nothing wrong with me, and I tell them I don't need a wheelchair, and they insist I need a wheelchair, and I have to insist on my right. And if I don't say when I book my flight, if I say I don't need a wheelchair, I'm sorry to tell you, they don't show up. So that is why I travel. Indeed, it's good in terms of my quality of life as well. Doing something we like doing helps our brains, and so our rights are critical to our well-being. The final article I would like to comment on is the one that focuses on living independently and being included in the community. The Convention requires states to ensure that persons with disabilities can choose where and with whom to live on an equal basis with others. To achieve this, states are required to make available living and support options that prevent segregation and isolation from the wider community, so as can be created through placement in residential care or long-term institutionalisation. We know that people with dementia are institutionalised too early and for too long. We know that it is an easy option, but the Convention challenges this growing reality, and we can use the Convention to force change. We have a right to live in our own homes. We worked hard for them. We paid our mortgages for them, so we need to be in our homes for as long as possible. This has been a common feature of much of my advocacy work in Ireland, where we still do not have a right to home care, yet we have a statutory right to be put in an institutional home. I want you to think for a moment about that, because I think it is so important. Imagine right now that I have a right to be put into a home, but I have no right to stay at my own home with my husband and my son. It is shocking. 9. I want to conclude now so we can take time here to talk about our rights and how the Convention can be used to ensure the state upholds our rights. I'm afraid Ireland is the last country to ratify the Convention, so that is my advocacy goal. I am also on the Monitoring Committee of Ireland's first National Dementia Strategy, where I bring the issues of rights to the table every time we meet. Beyond this, I will advocate to ensure that the next Irish Dementia Strategy includes a stronger focus on Convention. And I look forward to the European strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want my legacy to be that I have done everything in my right, that I have done everything all for the rest of my days, for as long as I have, to ensure that the rights of people with disabilities, and in particular the rights of people with dementia, are met. I want to thank you for listening to me. And of course, I'm sure you would expect me to end with a quote. So here's another one. Never doubt what a small group of thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you, Margaret Mead, for that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.